DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today I'm going to give you a framework that you can utilize to sell yourself. Now, this framework that I'm going to share here today is specifically for use. I thought of sharing this framework specifically because when I recently told you about utilizing the Dream 100 strategy, when I talked about the 3 ways that you can sell your stuff and get your name out there moving forward, the short term, medium term, and long term tools for marketing yourself and generating traffic. That was episode 1835, just about 2 weeks ago. I want to make sure that I'm giving you a framework that you can utilize to actually get yourself out there. You want to get your name out there. You want people to know about you. You want to introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself to the world. Use this framework that I'm going to give you here today with that Dream 100 strategy. When you're trying to make those connections and network and get people to know about you, you don't have a ton of time to tell them your whole story, but you want to tell them something. So the purpose of what I'm going to give you here today is to show people who you are, let them know what value you bring to the table, let them know why that value matters to them, because that's really what matters. They don't really care about you. Let them know what you want, all while leveraging the skill of brevity, which I talked about in episode 1738, the skill of making your point without talking too much. All right, you understand? We're going to do all of that here today. Now, I'm going to do an entire workshop on this whole framework that I'm giving you here soon. The workshop's not going to be here on this masterclass feed, but I'm going to do a whole workshop on this for any of you who's in the business world and you're trying to take what you know and take your intellectual property and package it in such a way that you can sell yourself to other people. I'm going to do a whole workshop on this moving forward, but I want to whet your appetite by giving you this here today just to give you at least give you the what of it before we dive deep in it in another time. So these are all things in the works, just so you know. But before we get into the points, let me remind you I got a text line. My number is 305-384-6894. Send me a text and tell me what part of your intellectual property, meaning the value that you have and that you want to bring to the table, what part of it is your biggest struggle right now when it comes to just getting it out there, getting it out and people understanding it, people hearing you, people giving you the time of day, and letting you share what you want to share. Tell me what that is, and I can help you out straight through that text. So my number again, 305-384-6894. Point number 1. Topic once again is a framework for selling yourself. The first thing that you want to share. So basically I'm telling you, when you are talking to someone else, whether you're emailing them, texting them, talking to them on a live stream, whatever it is that you're doing, here's how you're going to explain you to that person if they never heard of you before. Number 1, who you are and your background. Who you are and your background. This should take you all of 10 seconds. If you're 35 years of age, the first 22 years of your life in that 10 seconds, they get condensed down into 10 seconds. That's it. We do not need all of your life story. Don't tell people everything about you. Don't tell people who your parents were. Don't tell people all the setbacks that you had in your life. All you need to tell them is who you are and your background. Let me give you an example. Hey, Mike, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre All Day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete who played 9 years overseas after walking on at a Division III college. All right, so now I just told you who I am. Or I could say something like, hey, Mike, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre All Day. I'm the owner of this company called Work on Your Game. I've written 27 books and done 4 TED Talks. All I'm doing is telling you who I am, and I'm telling you my background. Now, the background that you share, if you have multiple things that you could use, I could tell people about what I've done in business. I could talk about my books. I could talk about my brand. I could talk about basketball. If you have multiple choices there, don't tell them all of them. Tell them the one that you believe is most relevant and or will most hook them. In other words, what's the one that's most going to get their attention to make them say, oh, that's interesting. That's your decision. Now, you can test them out. Test these out with different people in different audiences and find out which hook works best. But you get all of 10 seconds. You hear me? 10 seconds to tell people who you are and your background. Hey, my name's Dre. I got this podcast called Work on Your Game that has 2,000 daily episodes since 2016. Just me as a solo host. I might say that to somebody if I'm trying to sell them on, hey, I know how to create a whole bunch of content on a consistent basis. If I'm talking to a basketball audience and I'm trying to sell them that, hey, I might be able to tell people how to be good at basketball. I'll say, hey, I played D3 college and then played 9 years overseas. If I'm trying to talk about, hey, here's how you write books, I'll say, well, look, I've written 29 books. I'm telling them how to get booked on a stage and say, I've done 4 TED Talks. If you have these options, pick the point that is most relevant, that will most hook the person. You know what I mean when I say hook? Get them interested. What is that? 10 seconds. You got it? Good. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is a framework for selling yourself. Get to the good part fast. Now, you only use 10 seconds and you got their attention. So now they're like, all right, let me see what this person's talking about. Get to the good part. What is the good part? I want you to tell me, after your first 10 seconds, from second number 11 on, tell me the twist or setback or the challenge that led to where you are now. Now, why would you go into a twist or setback or challenge? Is because you're telling the story. All right, every story has ups and downs in it. All right, nobody's story is perfectly perfect. It's not, well, hey, I played basketball and everything worked out and I went straight to the NBA and into the Hall of Fame with no problems. All right, that's a boring story and it's not true. All right, you want to tell people the twist or the setback or the challenge that led to you being the person that you are now. How did you develop it? Why is this? Because when you're speaking to an audience of people, all right, they have twists, they have setbacks, they have challenges, they have things that are not working. They're not sure they'll ever get to the success that you're at. So you need to let them know how you can relate to where they are right now. Don't just tell the good parts, you got to tell the bad parts. As they say, your mess is your message. So you would say something such as, and this is not my examples, but such as, hey, I was 22 and in great shape and I found out I had cancer. Or I was running this business and we were doing $1 million a year and then within 6 months after the pandemic started, we lost the entire business. Or I had this great family with 3 kids and my wife left me one day. I didn't even know it was coming. Or, I was doing well in money, but then the financial crisis happened in 2008 and me and my family went bankrupt. Or I was this athlete and was great in high school and doing my thing and wanted to play in the NFL, but then I couldn't even make the college team, and I don't know why. Or I wanted to write books. I had this goal of being this great author, but then I found out I'm dyslexic and I can't even spell properly. Whatever it is, the twist, the setback, or the challenge, again, those are just examples that I'm giving you. Whatever it is, tell me what that challenge is early. That is the hook that makes me keep listening. So notice that I just told you twice about a hook. The first hook is, all right, that's interesting. Let me hear a little bit more about this person. Then you get into the story. So the first thing is just the quick pitch about yourself that makes you sound like you're a somebody. Then the next hook is, all right, let me tell you a little bit about this story that led me to where I am now. Now, you already told me that you reached success in the first 10 seconds, right? But now you're going backwards in the story and telling me about the challenge. So now I'm thinking to myself, subconsciously, unconsciously, wait a minute, how did you reach that success with that kind of challenge? Now I'm willing to listen a little bit more. Now, if your story sucks, or you're bad at saying it, then I'm not thinking that. Now I'm like, all right, get this person out of my face. Whatever it is, you want to tell me about it early because that hook makes me keep listening. Now, this is only about 45 seconds. You haven't even gotten to the first minute. You're not even at the 60-second mark. You get about 45 seconds to tell me a little bit about this story. And if you're in the written format, this will be the second paragraph or second sentence of your email. So let me give you another example. I will say something like, I wanted to play professional basketball, but I got cut from my high school team 3 years in a row, and I had to walk on at a D3 school that had never produced a professional basketball player before. And then when I got out of college, there was no information out there, no books, no courses, no mentors, no nothing telling me how to play professional basketball. But I still had this crazy dream, this hoop dream, that I thought I could become a professional player. I had no idea how I was going to do it, period. Now, mind you, I already told them that I played professional basketball. So they're like, wait a minute, how did that happen? How'd you bridge that gap between not having any leads and all of those things that didn't look too great, and then you became a pro athlete? How'd you do it? Now I'm going to answer that question moving forward. I have bought myself more time with the person to tell them the next part. Y'all follow what I'm saying here? Good. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is a framework for selling yourself. The third thing you're going to tell people is what you did about the situation and what the result was. So what you did about it is, well, I created this. I created this course, or I tried out this crazy thing that I heard about, or I stumbled upon this random thing that nobody knew about and I decided to give it a shot because I didn't have anything to lose, or I discovered this new way of doing things that I just came up with when I was randomly experimenting. And then this happened. This thing started working. Then things started changing. Then I started to overcome the challenge. So the third thing you're going to do is tell people how you came from the bottom, the valley there, and you started to actually climb the mountain, and things actually started working in your favor. So if I was to give you an example, not my personal example, but another example, let's say the person says, well, I'm this successful health and fitness instructor, but I found out when I was 22 and in great shape that I had cancer, and I lost all my hair, and I had to go through chemo, and I lost 50 pounds, and I was stuck in bed, and I could barely move, and if I touched something, my bones would break, and everything was falling apart in my life. Then I discovered this new cell therapy, or I discovered this new medicine that they were experimenting on. It wasn't FDA approved, but I didn't have anything to lose, so I decided to be the guinea pig for it. They experimented on me, and then it started working. And then I started getting my muscle back, and my bones stopped breaking, and I started getting back in shape, and I could go outside and work out again. And then I started helping other people who had the same kind of cancer as me, and now I'm starting to help everybody, and started to sell it, and I started to make a lot more money again. Again, short version, but this is an example of how you tell people how things started changing. How did things start changing for you? And again, all of this, everybody, we're not even into the second minute of you talking to a person. All right, this is all in the first 2 minutes, or if you're writing, first 2 to 3 paragraphs, and short paragraphs, people. All right, do not tell your entire life story when you're selling yourself. What did you do about the situation you were facing that didn't look good, and then what was the result? So I would say something like, if I'm telling my own story, I would say something like, at the same time that I started to try to get on playing basketball overseas, I started publishing videos to this new platform called YouTube. And it was 2005, so I do mean literally it was a brand new platform. Now, I was just making basketball videos, and I had some basketball fans, but these players, they started asking me questions about my mental approach. They just saw I was posting videos all the time, and they're like, who is this dude? Because we never heard of him before, but he looks like he can play. So they started asking me why I come to the gym all the time, or how do you have confidence in tryouts, or why'd you keep trying to play ball when you got cut from the team? Because I got cut from the team too. Or how can you get started even doing these things? So when I started answering these questions, I noticed that people wanted me to talk about the mental game because they saw that I had a really unique way of talking about it, period. So now I'm already hooking you in to what's the next step in the story. That people started asking me about the mental game because they saw that I was talking about it in a unique way. It wasn't really about basketball. I was talking about mental stuff for basketball, but people were really paying attention to this mental stuff, not just the basketball stuff. And when they started asking about it, I noticed it, and then I started talking about it. So now I've hooked you into the next step in the story. All right, where does this lead to? Because you already know, I already told you the endpoint, that I've written these books, or I did these speeches, or I have this business, or I had this podcast, or I played basketball. So you're already wondering, all right, how did these things come together? Now we're moving on to point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is a framework for selling yourself. Number 4, what do you do / how you are now living since you have figured things out, and how you are helping other people. Now remember, everything that we're talking about here today, folks, you are not giving people your entire life story. You'll get to do that later on. You could do that when you write your memoirs and all that stuff, or you start your own show. When you're selling yourself to other people, they don't really care about all of that detail. What they want to know is the relevant parts that make your stuff contextually relevant to their audience, and they want to know, all right, what's the story behind it? Because people can remember stories, people do not remember facts and data and information. So now you're going to tell them, and this is point number 4, what you do / how you are living today since you figured things out, since you solved that challenge that you dealt with, and how it is helping other people. Not just how it's helping you, how it's helping other people. Because at this point, you're getting to what your listener or reader can actually do with this stuff. All right, and you want to get to this pretty quickly because that's what people really want to know. What can my audience do with this? All right, if I'm hiring people to speak at a conference, I don't really give a damn about your success. I want to know how can what you talk about help the audience that's going to be in that crowd at the conference, and that's why I'm booking you. If I'm going to bring you on my show, let's say I got a podcast where I have guests every day, I want to know how what you talk about is going to help my audience. I don't give a damn about you and your success. That's cool, but what the hell is that going to do for me? What is what you do? How is what you do helping other people? That's what I want to know. This is what you tell them in point number 4. How is it helping people now since you figured things out? So I would say something like, if I'm telling my own story, I would say something like, when I started talking about these things like discipline and confidence and mental toughness and personal initiative, a bunch of people who didn't even play sports started finding my content, and they started saying, Dre, look, I'm not trying to play basketball, but I still follow your stuff, because when you talk about that mental game stuff, listen, I need that, and I don't even play basketball. So this told me that there's a whole world of people out there, not even athletes, who need to hear this whole work on your game thing that I happen to be piecing together at the time. And now that's exactly what I do. I teach people this philosophy called work on your game, It uses the stuff that I learned in sports, but it applies to business, it applies to everyday life. And now I've got an audience of, my content's reached over 70 million people over the last 15 years, not even counting the other 100, 200 million in China who pirated my stuff since they don't have YouTube over there. And that's where I'm at right now, period. So what you're gonna do here in point number 4 is you're going to tell people what they can get, or you're gonna tell the point person or whoever you're talking about what they can get from the things that you have developed over the years. That's your next step. What do you do / how you're living now that you have figured things out? You got it? Good. Point number 5. Today's topic, once again, is a framework for selling yourself. Number 5, then you tell people what you actually want. Now, if you're a salesperson, now remember the topic, a framework for selling yourself. All right, so when you're selling, you don't just tell people about what you're offering, you actually ask for the sale. You tell them, all right, this is what I want. You can drop a hint about this at the beginning. You can say something like, well, I'm writing you this email because I want to speak at your conference, or I want to be a guest on your show, or I want us to do an affiliate deal together. You can say that at the beginning when you introduce yourself, and you can also say it again here in this 5th point. So you can say something like, hey, I think we can do a great affiliate deal together. You are spewing it out with just a bit more, spelling it out rather, with just a bit more detail, but not too much detail. Now remember brevity, like we talked about in episode 1738. Brevity means just give them enough so that they can know if they want to know more or if they're not interested. All right, that's all you're going to do here when you're selling yourself. You don't tell people everything. Tell them enough that they can make a decision as to whether they want all the detail, or they're like, no, I'm good. I'm not interested in a basketball player. I'm not interested in a person who used to be a YouTuber. I'm not interested in someone who did TED Talks. I'm not interested in someone who writes books. I'm not interested in black guys. Whatever it is, you want to tell them enough that they can say yes or no. That's it. Okay? Do not give them everything. I don't know how many times I need to say this here in this episode, but I see people doing this too often. They give way too much information. They are violating the rules of brevity, giving way too much info, boring people to where they don't even get the juicy parts because it's diluted with all your damn life story. Nobody wants to hear your life story, okay? Only people want to hear your life story are people who will buy your memoir. All right, they didn't buy your memoir and they don't care about your life story. Most people do not, okay? Give them enough that they can say yes or no. That's it. Got it? Good. Point number 6. Today's topic is a framework for selling yourself. Number 6, stop talking. End your email. End your conversation. Stop speaking and let them talk. End the video if you did it on video. Now, this is it. This is period. Everything. You could be able to do this whole thing in like 2 minutes. 2 to maybe 4 minutes. If you need to go a little bit long, if you're pretty sure you got their attention, then you go a little bit longer, up to like 3 or 4 minutes, but no longer than that. This is the framework for selling yourself, folks. If you are writing something, 3 paragraphs. That's it. 3 paragraphs or less. All right, the maximum is 3 minutes. The maximum is 3 paragraphs. Now I'm gonna put all this together for you as we recap our points, okay? This is the topic once again today is a framework for selling yourself. All right, this is something that you would use when you're using something like the Dream 100 strategy that we talked about a couple weeks ago when I talked to 3 tools for marketing yourself long term. Number 1, who you are and your background. You got all of 10 seconds. Condense your life down to 10 seconds and the most relevant thing for the person that you're talking to. So for example, I would say something like, let me just recap all the points and I'll do the whole thing. I'll just give you a demonstration. Point number 2, get to the good part first, fast. Tell me the twist, setback, or challenge that led to where you are right now. Point number 3, what you did about that twist, setback, or challenge and what resulted. You created something, you tried something, things started working. Point number 4, what you do now or how you are living now because you have figured it out and how you are helping other people figure out the same challenge that you went through in your situation. And point number 5, what do you actually want? You could have dropped a hint about this at the beginning, but you also want to spell it out here in the end. But again, being very brief. Remember brevity. They may not even be interested. You're giving them enough info to say no or tell me more. And number 6, stop talking. Now we're going to put all this together in an example. Hey, Mike, my name is Dre Baldwin. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete who has this business called Work on Your Game that helps people with their mental game. I wanted to play professional basketball, but I got cut from my high school team 3 years in a row. And I walked on at a D3 college that had never produced a professional player. Didn't even play my senior year of college because a new coach came in and I got caught in the shuffle, wasn't even on the basketball team. But I still wanted to play pro. I still had this crazy hoop dream that I can make it pro. That's points 1 and 2. Point number 3, What I did then was go to this event called an exposure camp. I did my thing at this exposure camp. I got on, started playing overseas. And then I took the footage from that exposure camp and I put it on this new website called YouTube. And a bunch of basketball players started finding me because they saw that I knew how to play and I could explain how they could practice. And they needed the same thing that I used to need back in the day. They needed to learn how to play basketball, but they didn't have anyone to teach them. So I was basically helping people who were in the same spot that I used to be in 10 years before. But here's what's crazy, Mike. When I started putting the videos up, these players started asking me questions about my approach because they saw how consistent I was. They started asking me about mindset. They started asking me about discipline and confidence and mental toughness and mental talking about those things, and I realized that people who weren't even athletes wanted to know about this stuff. So this is how I came up with this whole philosophy called work on your game. And it was based on discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative. The same things that you need to succeed in sports and how they actually work in the business world. That's point number 3. Point number 4. What I do now, since I stopped playing ball several years ago, now I help people with this whole philosophy called work on your game. I do it through speaking, through podcasting, through writing books, through coaching, through consulting. I help people take the mental tools that work in sports and use them in business and in everyday life. I've written all these books and I have these shows and I create courses and I coach people. And now I have this whole audience of over 70 million people who have heard my material and read my books and taken in my content, who are really working on their games, whether that's mental game, their business game, their interpersonal game, their sports game, all based on this whole framework that I created. And I have these other frameworks in there like the Super You and the Third Day, having an action bias and going and making things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And all of these things people are knowing me for because of the way that I'm putting things out here right now. And I think your audience could benefit from this a lot. So now that's point 4, going right into point number 5. I think your audience can benefit from this, Mike, because I see you help people with their development and you help people be more motivated and be inspired. I see you talking about that every day in your stuff. I think we could do a great affiliate deal together because you have a course and I got this course, and I think we could put them together. And when they get your course, they also get my course, and we could charge this much for it. Let me know what you think about this. Do you see this as something that could probably make sense for your audience, period? Now, again, that's just a very rough example. I might not say it in exactly those words, but this is a framework for selling yourself. This is how you put it all together. And it shouldn't take you any more than a minute or 2 to explain yourself, or a paragraph or 3 to explain yourself to another person. Leave out the details. Leave out the details. If they're interested, they'll ask you for details. Then you can go into it. But if they're not interested, they will either not reply or they'll just tell you, look, I'm good. I'm not interested, it's not for me, and that's fine. Move on to the next person. It's 8 billion people on the planet. So this is what you use to sell yourself. Send me a text. Tell me which part of this you needed the most and which part of it you're going to use the most. My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.